Welcome back. So this is part 2 of The Science of Getting Rich by Wattles. In part 1, we defined the purpose of life as development. We discussed that development should cover 3 areas: body, soul, and mind. The purpose of money is to ensure that you can afford to buy all that you need to live an abundant life. I like this quote.
Wherever there is unexpressed possibility or function not performed, there is unsatisfied desire. Desire is possibility seeking expression or function seeking performance.
And if that desire cannot be expressed, then you have lack and you're not rich in that particular area of your life. Wattles goes further to say that to be rich, you have to do things in a certain way. Those who do things in that certain way get rich. So, an example from my life. When I went to the gold market in Dubai, what I noticed was that while some shops were full of people, others were empty. And this is what Wattles describes, that people could be doing the same profession, living on the same street, working on the same street, doing exactly the same thing, while one person prospers and the other doesn't. So in Dubai, I noticed that even the shops that were off the main walkway showed the same results. Some had loads of customers, whereas others had no customers or very little. So I suppose in this instance is a classic example to show that perhaps it is true that some of these shopkeepers were doing things in a certain way, while others were not. This part of the book reminds me of The Alchemist, where the shepherd increased the sales in the crystal shop because he did things in a certain way, and that attracted more customers to come and patronize the crystal shop. In that book, they sold tea using the crystal glasses, and that gave them a unique selling point. That was quite an interesting book, and I'll be reviewing that book at some point as well. This phrase kept coming up in the book, and it is a golden thread throughout the whole book. It ties the story together. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made, and which, in its original state, permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe. A thought in this substance produces a thing that is imaged by the thought. Man can form things in his thought, and by impressing his thought upon formless substance, can cause the thing he thinks about to be created. At first, I thought the formless stuff was imagination, but now I think it is belief. I believe the trick here is to imagine what it is that you want to come to pass. So, for example, if you want a cup of coffee, imagine that you will get a cup of coffee and believe that you've already got that cup of coffee, and in time you will get it. So real life examples. So I read The Secret back in the day. One of the speakers in The Secret suggested you should just ask for something simple like a cup of coffee and, test the theory using a cup of coffee, which was quite interesting. At the time, I didn't drink coffee, but I did it anyway. So I would kind of imagine that I'll get a cup of coffee and visualize a cup of coffee. And for a very long time, I never did get that cup of coffee. But after many years, I started drinking coffee. And all of a sudden, I would just walk into Pret and I would be offered a free coffee. There was a time I was working in a hospital and all staff were given free coffees, and I enjoyed, that free coffee there. So there was a period in my life that every day I got a free coffee, and it might well be because I visualized it. It was no longer a fantasy. It was something that I really did want. That desire actually started coming to pass. Take from it as you will. Anyway, here are the chapters of the book. Wattles goes into details about how you can do things in a certain way to get rich. And there are quite a few chapters here. The one I particularly like was the impression of increase. So this in summary suggests that if you give people the impression of increase, they're more likely to patronize you, more likely to want to associate with you. And in that way, you can get what you want, and at the same time, you can give them what it is that they want. So The Science of Getting Rich is a really cool book. I think one should actually read it as opposed to listen to it because it's so packed with information, and you may need to take time to pause to digest what you're taking in. The book gets a 10 out of 10 from me, and it also gets an Excellent Read Award. If you've enjoyed this review, I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.